In this video, we're going to go over algebraic properties, some basic ones that show us why we can do many of the things we do in algebra. So they help lay the foundation. So the very first one that we are going to talk about is called the commutative property. And the commutative property has a property specifically related to addition, the commutative property of addition, and there's one for multiplication. So the commutative property tells us that we can add numbers in any order, or we can multiply numbers in any order. So for the addition property, you can see in general, we say A plus B is B plus A and B can be any real number. But if we do a specific example, you can use 3 plus 5, and that's to say that's the same as 5 plus 3. Or for multiplication, we could say, for example, 2 times 4 is the same as 4 times 2. So these properties are only true for the addition and the multiplication operation. The associative property, you can think this one says that you can add two terms together and then add in a third term, or you can add the second two terms together and then add in the first term, right? So you're still kind of adding them in any order, but you're grouping them together first. So here you can think associate as in a grouping, so where you see the parentheses. So we have the associative property of addition and also for multiplication. So for addition, if we looked at an example, you would have 3 plus 4 plus 5. In the first example, we would group the 3 and the 4 together, right? And that becomes 7. And then you would add the 5 and you would get 12. Or if you do this example, this is saying, hey, let's add the 4 plus 5 first, which is 9. And then we're going to add that to 3. And then you would get 12. So in either case, you're going to get the same value. So the order of the grouping doesn't really matter. Same here, 2 times 3, 6, and then 6 times 4 is 24. Or if we go over here, 3 times 4 is 12, and then 2 times 12 is also 24. That's called the associative property. The next one down, the third one that we're going to look at is called the distributive property. And specifically, this one has a number here multiplied times a sum of two numbers. So you have A multiplied times the sum of B plus C. And so this says that we can multiply A times B. So a lot of times we'll do this little distribute arrow to remind you that you have to multiply the A times the B, but then you're going to add that to the product of A times C. So that's going to be equal to AB plus AC. So in an example, you could have 2 times the sum of 3 plus 4. So we're going to have 2 times 3 plus 2 times 4. So we distribute the 2 to both of those terms. And then we get 6 plus the 8. And so then your answer here is 14. So that's the distributive property in a specific example. The identity property can exist for addition and multiplication. And it's basically the number that you either add or multiply to itself to get back to itself. So if you're looking at addition, we would add 0 to A and it gives us back A. So the addition identity, or you could say the additive identity, would be called 0. So 0 is called the additive identity, since if we add it to any number, it's going to give back itself. Like in this example, 7 plus 0 gives you 7. But for multiplication, it becomes 1, right? Because now if we multiply any number times 1, A times 1, you're going to get back A. Or in this example, 9 times 1, you get back 9. So 1 is called the multiplicative, big word, identity, the multiplicative identity. So that's the identity property. Now, the inverse property is kind of related, but now you're trying to figure out if you're doing the additive or the multiplicative inverse, you're trying to figure out what you would add to get back to the identity. So for addition, if I want to get back to 0, which is the additive identity, I would have to add the opposite of a number. Okay, so we would say that the additive inverse is going to be the opposite of the number. So for example, over here, we said A plus a minus A gives you 0, or you could put any number you wish in here. So let's go off and talk about that for just a second, because if we use, say, 3, right? 3, you would have to add its opposite, which would be minus 3, would give you 0. Or let's say the first number was already negative. So another example, let's say it was -2. Well, then you would have to add the opposite of a -2, which would be a +2, and that would give you 0. So if it's positive, the opposite would be negative. If it's already negative, the opposite would then be positive. So that's how you would get back to the additive identity, by putting in the additive inverse. Okay, so it'd be the opposite of the number. Now for the multiplicative inverse, it's always going to be the reciprocal of whatever the number is. So you're going to take the number A. If you multiply it times 1 over A, it's going to give you back 1, which is the multiplicative identity. So in this example down here, we use 4, right? Because if we use 4, you can write 4 over 1. And so it's you would use its reciprocal, which would be 1 over 4. And that's going to give you 4 over 4, which of course comes out to be 1. So if you multiply by the reciprocal, you're going to get back to 1. And so the multiplicative inverse is going to be the reciprocal of the number, and the multiplicative identity would be 1. Okay, so that gives you an overview of some of the basic algebraic properties. And the worksheet I have that goes with this for practice just allows you to go through and identify these in action. So enjoy working on those, and we will see you in the next video.